Hello, it's your main man, Rick the Dawn. Hey! Um, so these are my 3D spectacles, and these are the actual real 3D glasses I had when I went to the movie theater. How's everybody doing out there? Ooh. Anyway, you want to know why this isn't a 10 out of 10? Let's get that part out the way. Let's get that part out the way. The reason it's not a 10 out of 10 is because it is. This is why it's not a 10 out of 10. Somebody saw the rating on the thumbnail and was so hurt. But this is the truth. This is why it's not a 10 out of 10. Live with it. I know you don't like it. So what? You don't get what you want all the time. Grow up, internet person, you. All right. This episode is brought to you by the Really Hood Podcast. Go check it out, available everywhere. All right, folks. I just got back from the movie theater, and it was okay. We're gonna go through this, but this is the biggest problem right here. Okay, this is the biggest glaring issue of the film, and I tried to ignore it, but it's hard to. Okay, so let's get some stuff out the way. Was the movie perfect? Not at all. I give it a 9.8 and in the category of adventure films. Okay, if we're just talking solely adventure films, a 9.8 easy. If we're talking about all genres, just let's just pick the best movies out there, it definitely drops down to maybe a 9.2. I would say even between an 8.8 and a 9.2, somewhere in that range. It is not perfect, and I'll go into more detail about that as I go on. If you want the quick version, it's not perfect because of this. Goodness gracious, this was really rough. Okay, first impressions. When I first saw the film, put my glasses on, I was really excited. When I first started to take in the 3D and all that kind of stuff, I was underwhelmed, and I was like, wow, this doesn't. I wasn't feeling it yet. So what I had to do was, and I realized it wasn't necessarily the movie. I had to put my glasses on, like my reading glasses, and put these on top of my reading glasses. And when I did that, it changed things a little bit. But kind of going back to the film though, because that wasn't Avatar's fault. But going back to the film, I was a little underwhelmed, and I don't know. I was just like expecting so much more. And I'll tell you, this film has been in production for a very long time. I believe James Cameron started, filming or at least prepping for the film or this film right after the first Avatar. And correct me if I'm wrong, but this is how it felt. It felt like the first half of the film was started back in 2010. And then when you get towards the end of the film, that feels more recent, like maybe 2019. There was like, and I'm not sure if I'm the only person to notice this, but it felt like a quality jump. Like from the beginning of the film to the end of the film, which is a big to me. I could actually spot the difference. I'm gonna tell you the truth. The beginning of the film looked very much so like a PS8 video game, PlayStation 8. So if you're a fan of video games and video game consoles, right now we're on PlayStation 5. The first half of the movie just looked like a video game to me, and I couldn't shake it. I was trying to, but it really came across as a animated video game. It did not feel real. And I remember distinctively listening to people's commentary on the film about how realistic it looked. And when I saw it, I was just like, no, I don't. It looked like a video game. I'll tell you, it looks like a video game cutscene, and it was a little emerging or emergence breaking. It kind of broke the emerging. What's the word I'm looking for? It broke immersion. Is that the word? Okay, I don't know. I just couldn't get into it because I noticed how much it looked like a video game cutscene. And then it changes towards the middle, like I will say from the middle to the end of the film, it then changes. And now it's like, oh snap. And it just kind of, it starts to look like what you expect. But for some reason, the beginning of the movie didn't quite do it for me. I was not quite impressed initially. We're passing oh yeah. The beginning of the film did have some weird pacing issues. Like when it first comes on, it's a lot going on. And that is to be understood. You're trying to tell this super huge story in a limited time frame, and you're trying to pick up the pace as if everything is just kept going from the last film. But for me, it's a little choppy, if I'm being honest. All right. But at some point it captures you. And when I say this film captures you, even me, a skeptic, someone who was not impressed with the the PS8 graphics, and PS8 is going to look beautiful. I'm telling you right now, when we get to PlayStation 8, it will look like this film, at least the first half. Okay, I was just like, wow. But at some point, it literally captures you, it grabs you, and it just holds your attention, because then you start to remember some of the plot points from the original. And I would say this is a caveat. I think everybody should watch the like a recap of the first film, or watch the first film altogether before you watch this. I think that is the way you want to go in, because having not done that, I felt like I was just trying to grasp onto. I remember what happened vaguely, right? I remember a guy wanted to be, he was on this he was in some kind of program, and he wanted to, and then he wanted to stay in the program or something weird. I forgot. I got to go watch it again now. This second film made me want to go watch the first one again, or at least go do or watch a recap. But at some point it just grabs you. You just you can't shake it off. All right. And then the runtime, was it bad? Absolutely not. At some point, once I started to get into the film, I was just sitting back, like just admiring how beautiful things have become. Again, in the beginning, it was okay, but it was just like I was kind of picking it apart when it first came on. I'm like, I was expecting so much more, and I was seeing some glaring issues for me in terms of quality. And but towards the middle to the end, I'm not sure what happened. It just is like, oh, maybe my eyes got acclimated to the film. I'm not sure, but it just started to become like really, really, what's the word I'm looking for? Became really, I don't know the word I'm looking for. It just became like it's real late. Like in my world, it's like super late. Like it's like midnight, and I think I got brain fog. But it became like very, very engrossing. There you go. And then as far as the 3D, let's talk about it. So, like I said at the beginning, the 3D was there, and I was a little underwhelmed, obviously, but towards the middle to the end, it just got really good. And I'll tell you exactly where the 3D shined the brightest. The 3D really took off anytime you were with the avatars or the Narakus, whatever it's called. Anytime you was with them underwater, that's when the film just really took off. Like anytime you was underwater and you saw, there was this one scene in the middle of the film when they kind of get banished out of their original habitat or whatever, and they go to the sea people or whatever. When they get there, they do some underwater stuff, right? And I'm telling you, this is the best part of the film for the 3D aspect, because you see the fish floating right by you. They did an amazing job with the 3D after some time had passed. Like I didn't like the beginning. I don't know what, maybe like I think my expectations was so high that in the beginning it was just like, I just thought it was going to be better. But towards the middle to the end, you start to accept what you have before you, and you just say, you know what, okay, I'm gonna enjoy this, because why not? I got to be here for 3 hours. But when they're underwater and the fish are floating around, that's when you really see James Cameron's fingerprint on the film. Some of the gunfights are pretty awesome. And I'll also say the particle effects, like they're walking through the jungle, you see little leaves and little dust just kind of floating around, and it looks right, it's right here in front of you. Is the 3D so emerging? Why I keep saying emergence? I can't remember the word, dude. Like, like, is the emerging? Is it emerging? I forget the word. All right, so is the 3D so engrossing? Is the 3D so engrossing that you do the traditional, like, in front of your face? Not really. Not really. It does get close. It feels like it's about right here. I don't know if you can tell the distance here, about right here. It never really feels like it's here. And I think the only time it felt like that was when you were like I said, under the water, and they were under the water a lot, but that's not a complaint. I really liked the direction of the film. I did not expect them to leave with the forest and the jungles and then go and meet this second version of avatars, and it was kind of awesome how they pulled this off, because this next group of avatars look similar to them, and initially you're looking at the traditional avatars, and then this new type of avatar, and you're like, something's a little different, and you notice that they use a slightly lighter hue for the avatar, and they also change the hands. They look more like fins. They change the tail. The tail looks more like a fin. And once they do that, you like, wait a minute, okay. Then you start to figure it out, like, okay, this is a different species, a different race of Avatar. I really like that aspect of the film. And yeah, like I say, 3D, it was pretty solid after my initial reaction. It was like I think my expectations was a 12, because you know how people sell James Cameron's movies like, oh my god, they do that. And so when I saw it, I'm expecting a 12. It was more like a 8.5, 9. And then towards the middle to the end of the film, it jumped up to a 10. And I was like, okay, respect. I respect it. But I just want to just take a moment and just say I absolutely love James Cameron's films. One of my favorite movies of all time, if not my number one favorite movie of all time, is Titanic. I absolutely love Titanic. And actually, one of the previews showed that I think it's coming up pretty soon, like maybe February 17th or something like that. They're gonna do a 3D version of Titanic. So that's pretty dope. All right, let's talk about the issues. It was only one issue that stood out. All right, this is the biggest issue that I found with the film. There's one point in the film when, and it was like two brothers, right? It was two brothers, and one brother was older and mature and had the favor of the father. The other brother was young, immature, and always getting in trouble. But anyway, there's one point where the brothers and the two sisters, they're kind of like venturing out, and they come across the villains. And the villains are basically like venturing out, and they come across the villains. And the villains are basically like American Marines who happen to have the Avatar skin. So they're basically enhanced American Marines and Army Navies and all that, Army Navy SEALs. Like seriously, Navy SEALs, Marines by themselves are a tough out. Like you're not gonna just wipe them out. But when you take those same Navy SEALs, Marines, all that, and you put them in the body of an Avatar, which is about what 8 to 10 feet tall, like the strength of an ox. You know what I'm saying? That just makes them a deadly combination. But it was crazy because the little kids, they get lost, and then they get caught by these armed Avatar infused soldiers. Okay, and I'm talking about like these soldiers. The way the film tries to paint them, the film tries to paint them as these like dangerous soldiers, and they're caught at gunpoint, and they have no weapons. I'm talking about the kids. This is some little kids, and I think they radio or do some kind of telepathic thing to let the father and mother know, like, hey, we in some situation, we in a situation. So they break everything and go save their kids. When I tell you that the mom with the bow and arrow and the father with the little whatever he had wiped out an entire platoon that was Avatar enhanced, that just messed it up for me. I was like, this is going to be the traditional good guys can't lose kind of movie. And I understand why they did that, because I think what Avatar is now backed by Disney, and Disney always tries to pretend like it's the perfect company, it's offer for kids, all that kind of stuff. But it was very emerging breaking. Is that it? Did I say it right finally? It was emerging breaking, man, because you're like basically two parents and four little kids just wiped out an entire army. That's what it felt like. And they were all heavily armed. I mean, I've never seen military soldiers shoot this poorly. And it was just like emergent breaking. It was so emergent breaking. It was just like, dude, it's impossible. I'm talking about 85 shots through the jungle. They missed every shot. And then whoever this mother is, you know who I'm talking about. She got a bow and arrow and she killing everybody. I'm like, if she that strong, why are we even in this film? Why are we watching this right now? Why are we going through all this? I'm talking about this chick ain't never missed. She has a bow and arrow. Talk about bringing a bow and arrow to a gunfight. She has a bow and arrow and she hitting everything. All right. She even took a second to shoot an arrow at a little mouse that was just running, wasn't even trying to do nothing. She just threw a little arrow and killed the mouse in the middle of killing all the soldiers, right? That's what it felt like. Can you imagine? This is exactly what it was. Can you imagine a 8-year-old, a 19-year-old, a 16-year-old, and a 20-year-old, along with their mother and father, wiping out an entire, I would say about 8 U.S. soldiers? Can you imagine that? Me either. Can you imagine that same group only 2 of the 6 armed with bow and arrows and like one AR-15, wiping out about 8 soldiers with like bazookas and AR-15s and shotguns and bullets and everything. Can you imagine that? That's what happened. Okay, and that just threw me off. I just couldn't. I was like, dude, what the? So, that happens, and then they go and they start to join the water people, the water avatars, and then a big climax happens where they got to save their children again, right? And it's even worse than before because now it's like the avatar. It's the Avatar people versus like an entire U.S. Army, like an entire fleet, and all the avatars has is bow and arrows and spears, and they wipe out an entire platoon with AR-15 shotguns, grenades, bullets. They got everything. They got handkerchiefs. They got plates. They got everything known to me. They got hooks. They got guns, and they get wiped out 72-1 by some people with some bow and arrows and some spears. Emergent breaking. All right, so let's talk about this one person that got killed. So the older brother, who was the mature one and always doing the right thing, he got shot, and I didn't even know he got shot. He was hiding, and he tried to come out of hiding, and I saw one of the soldiers just let off a clip, and next thing you know, he was hit one time. So even though they finally decided to kill Avatar, they didn't even let him get like sprayed up. He got hit one time. And I was like, bro, this is yo. Now let me tell you something. If this was real life or even more practical, there would have been so many casualties. So many casualties. And only one person died on that side. It threw off the emergent for me. I just couldn't get with it. I was just like, yeah, that threw it off. That kept it from being a 10 out of 10. The film didn't have the heart to be authentic in a way that it should have. If you're going to put these people against these people with AR-15s, gauges, AK-47, like it's going to have to be at least 7 people dead, at least one person. And it just happens to be the son of the protagonist, nobody else. Like they hold a funeral for the son, and this is after the climax and the film is pretty much over. You are expecting, at least I'm expecting to see like a little funeral for like all their fallen, but it's literally just the son. And just like, okay, all right. I'm just gonna play along. Yeah. Okay. Now I want to say something else about this mother. Okay. The mother, the lady from the first film, the mother is so overpowered that she is stronger than the dad, the father. Okay. I don't know what this chick like, bro. Something she must got like homing arrows on her bow and arrow. Like her arrows never miss. When I say that it was like a waste of time watching any of this because she was just so overpowered. Like I'm talking about, if you wondering how overpowered I'm talking about, I mean, you put 50 U.S. Marines armed to the tooth, bulletproof vests, AK-47s in a room, and you just put her in a room with a bow and arrow, she would literally kill every soldier in there without getting touched. That is how overpowered she was in the film. And it's just like, and then they had the nerve. They actually had the nerve to have the male protagonist battle off against the antagonist. They're like having this slugfest on the ship, right? And I'm like, bruh, why are y'all fighting? Just call your wife in here and hit him with a couple arrows. And the craziest part was she didn't even have like a quiff of arrows, or how you say it. She didn't even have like 5 arrows. Like she had like 1 arrow. And every time she hit somebody, she go pull it out and then use it again. Man, that messed up the whole. That was emergent breaking for me. She had 1 arrow for the entire movie. And how many bodies did she have? She had like 30 bodies. She killed 30 people, 30 soldiers with 1 arrow. So for anybody saying it's perfect, I'm calling baloney on that. I'm calling baloney. It's not perfect. It can't be. You had a mother kill 75 U.S. soldiers with 1 arrow and then not get shot 1 time. Shut up. All right, now I will tell you one of the best parts of the film that I didn't expect to be so awesome was the sea life. It was a lot of like whale like animals, creatures in the film, and I think the biggest standout was the bad guys hunting this one little whale thing, whatever it was. They hunt this thing, and the way they did it was so well executed from a filmography standpoint. They shot each fin with like blades and balloons that made the whale float to the top, and then they threw a grenade under his chest. And then after it was done, they went inside the whale's mouth and drilled his brain and sucked out this golden ooze that makes you stop aging. I was like, yo, this was just seeing the little drill go into the brain. I was like, in 3D too, by the way. That was like the best part of the film, if you can believe it. For me, it was just watching the drill go into the whale's mouth. I love stuff like that in films. I just love it. And just how, being able to see it in 3D was even better. But I love how well they pull that off. And I think I know where this film is going to go. That ooze type of stuff, that little gold ooze they pull from the little whale thing, that's got to be what the turmoil will be about in the future films. Because if you don't know, it's already been put out there. There's already 4 sequels to the original film, so there's at least a Avatar 5 already in the works, and I believe Avatar 3 comes out December 2024. Can you believe that? Next year, December. So James Cameron's a bad man, dude. He's a bad man. Now, the climax, I've already kind of talked about it, but you had this big fight on the ship. Could have been ended by the mom. She just could have came through with the bow and arrow. Done. We over. Can we go home? All right. They lose a son, and she just goes into like Super Saiyan mode and just starts killing everything. I mean, she took a second, just shot a little bow and arrow at a little roach in the corner, just killing everything. I don't know how she did it, but the father and the villain, they fight, and some people are not gonna like the ending because the villain survives and he's basically saved by one of the good people in the film, and I won't spoil that for you, but I think I just spoiled it. But you know what I mean. All right, so yeah, that's pretty much it, man. I'm not about to, beautiful film though. After a point, I was done with my skepticism. So you probably can tell by the thumbnail, I'm giving this film a 9.8 as far as adventure films are concerned. If we're talking about all films, it's more like an 8.8 for me, if I'm being honest. But I'm gonna be fair and just give it a 9.8 because I drank the Kool-Aid. The Kool-Aid was good. It was tasty. I'm partaking because it was just such a. It was so you know what it was. Let me tell you why. Despite this ridiculousness that I saw in the film, let me tell you why I still give it a 9.8. It was the audacity of James Cameron to do what he tried to do. All right, you talking about creating entire worlds. We're talking about digital filmography. We're talking about all this stuff. It's just like, yo, this was you can just feel the effort on the screen. You can feel the money spent. And for that, I'm gonna respect his work, despite some of the weird, goofy choices with the death the death totals and all that. Just kind of weird. And I know why he probably did it. You don't want to kill off your stars, but like, dude, like make it make sense. You know what I'm saying? If you don't have to kill off all your people, but just put some NPCs in there that can take a shot. Let me tell you what the number should have been. You want to know the number should have been? Okay, first off, this number right here needed to come down. They was too armed at every point. So it should have been like 40 deaths on the human side. And as far as Avatar, should have been like 55. When I tell you it was so many bullets flying around this movie, it was so many bullets flying around this movie. So many bullets. And they ain't hit nothing. And it was so disrespectful to soldiers. I can see a soldier being so upset watching. It's like, yo, this is how they doing soldiers. I can see a soldier being so upset watching. It's like, yo, this is how they doing this now. I mean, these were trained shooters. They hit one person. And as far as ammunition is concerned, they probably shot like 3,000 bullets. That is so disrespectful, James Cameron. That's all I got to say about that. But I don't, I hope you enjoyed, my perspective on the film. Should you go see it? Of course. And I had to see it 3D because for a minute, that's why I'm so late. For a minute, I was just gonna wait for it to come on streaming, but I was like, wait a minute. If it come on streaming, I probably won't be able to enjoy the film with like my 3D spectacles. You know what I'm saying? So I decided to go in and just watch it, with the 3D spectacles. so I can get the full James Cameron experience. Because I was like, if I don't see it now with the 3D glasses, what's going to happen is I'm gonna have to wait like 15 years for them to re-release it, kind of like they just did with Titanic. I'm gonna have to wait like 15 years to watch this movie. I'm like, dude, I can just go see it tonight. So I went to go see it tonight. Man, beautiful movie. All right. I will, like I said, the beginning was weird for me. I'm like, I don't. There were times when I was looking, I was like, bro, that looks like a PS8 game. Now, I didn't say PS5. I'm not being disrespectful. I said PS8 for a reason. It still looked good. But it looked like a video game. It didn't feel like a movie at some points. But anyway, that's all I got. I'll holler at you.